again on the transition puzzle. Today we have Dr. David Boje, and our topic is navigating authentic storytelling. So first, let me tell you a little bit about first the transition puzzle. Okay, on the transition puzzle, we're talking about all about navigating transitions, creating and finding your authentic self. So today, David Boje, Dr. David Boje, he's a professor emeritus, New Mexico State University. He's a professor at Auburn University. He has an annual quantum storytelling conference. He has true storytelling certification program, and he also has a blog regarding true storytelling. So let's just jump in. So, Dr. Boje.
Yes. Hi. David. Hi, Pamela.
Hello, David. Okay. So, David, so first, tell us a little bit about yourself. I gave a little overview, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm 73 years old. I live by the Oregon Mountains here in New Mexico, southern New Mexico, Las Cruces. And I'm an emeritus professor in New Mexico State University. And I've been in the storytelling field for about 40 years. And that's all I study. I just study storytelling.
Okay.
Whatever you're gonna do, it's a story.
Okay. So let's jump on into this topic, navigating authentic storytelling.
Okay.
Okay. We have heard a lot about storytelling. It's all in the story. But how did you come up with true storytelling and then authentic storytelling? How is that different?
No problem. So I got two colleagues in Denmark. Jens Larsen, he's like a life coach like yourself, also does organizational development and change, and he writes things mainly in Danish. And then Lena Brun, who left her job as a museum director, the Rock Museum outside of Copenhagen, and she organized that. And we decided to write a book on true storytelling because there's so much fake going on. You know, it's fake this and fake that, fake news. And to find your authentic self, you know, to find the authentic me, as you say, it can be kind of difficult for a lot of people because we get programmed by the media and what our self should be. We call it the they self. You know, we should be this they self and that they self. And they is always telling us what to be. And so to differentiate our authentic self and what I call the living story, you know, we each have our living story from birth to death and into the cosmos. You know, we have that living story that's our authentic self. But it can get buried. It can get snowed under, you know, by a lot of fake storytelling and trying to be what you're not here to be, you know? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So let's talk about this, the they self and that living story. How do you get people to focus in and to learn about their authentic self? Because this is what I talk a little bit about of my framework with navigating transitions. And in that becoming part, it is defining who self is. So how do you get people to recognize what is that true authentic self versus that self that they have created?
Well, that's a good question, Pamela. Thank you. So in true storytelling, you know, we do our coaching and our facilitating, and we start with what is true. You know, it's a basic question: what's true? What's the true story? And people have their ideas of what's true and what's not true, and they're basically their beliefs and some of their values and what they've been told. And then we want to go, what's already there? What's what's already there for you, like your history, you know. And I'm talking about your deep history. We're star particles. We come from
Mm-hmm.
stars and water particles, and we're these beings on the earth, and we want to find out that history, but we don't know our history, you know. Maybe our mom told us this, or dad
Mm-hmm.
told us something. I mean, we lived some experiences, yes. But I was 53 years old when my mother finally said, you know, you've got indigenous relatives on both sides of the family tree, and your great grandfather was a blacksmith, and your grandmother Wilda was a trick rider in the rodeo, and her brother was killed by a sheriff for marrying a Native American woman. So you start to learn parts of history you didn't know, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and then your authentic self. How can you be your authentic self if you don't know the before, the history? So we go from, you know, what we say think is true. We got our ideas, and then we get a deeper history, and then we work on what you call becoming. How can we
Mm-hmm.
become our authentic self? What is that about? How can we become in space, in time, you know, in nature, in family, in our relationships all around us? How can we become? And what are we becoming? So now we're talking about getting closer and closer to authentic self in the beingness. We're beings, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're being in the world around us in
Mm-hmm.
some way, right? And we have our little projects and our little things. So we're going from before to becoming to being. And then we start working with that. And I have some processes we can talk about if you want, how to discover we don't just have one future, we have many futures and we have many pasts,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we're connected here in being. And we finally end up with the beyond. What is beyond, you know? What is
Mm-hmm.
beyond our five senses? You know, we taste,
Mm-hmm.
smell, touch, hear, see, all the rest of it. But what's beyond that? I mean, we're intuitive, we're spiritual beings,
Mm-hmm.
we're in the cosmos, we're here, you know. So if we're going to have authentic self, it's got to have all of that. If
Mm,
that makes
yes,
sense.
yes. Mm-hmm.
That's my short answer. Don't ask for the
Oh,
long answer. You don't want the long answer.
all right. Okay. So, yes, I love that, and thank you, for sharing. And I'm starting to see that the framework I have is really closely connected. And yes, obviously, so you were my mentor. We've known each other for over 10 years.
Yep.
And part of that is in my framework, um, as well as, that becoming is that preparation. And it's not, and I feel like sometimes when we are preparing, we just look at, you know, us or the outside, and we don't really look at is how are those two connected? Because I know I talk about energy, not just the energy you're putting out, but what are you bringing in? And not only that, but why is it that you're bringing in or you're putting out this particular energy at this time? So it's like knowing that story, knowing the reason why behind it will help us move forward. And you were mentioned being, yes, we're living in the moment. So when we're preparing, how do we live it? And so, do you talk about that as well in this true storytelling? You learn about your past,
Mm-hmm.
but how do you get people to just live in that moment of learning about their past? Because sometimes learning about your past may not be all good. You may
No.
find some things that don't set well with you. So, how do you train people, coach people to live in that past, but live in it in the present, accepting the good, the bad, and the ugly, and how to maneuver through that.
Yeah.
So, how do you teach people and coach people on that?
Well, I think this embracing all of your experience is important, because we learn from all of our experiences in life, right? Now, I work a lot with veterans and their families with PTSD or traumatic brain injury using storytelling. And people get stuck in the past. If you've had trauma in your life, you can get stuck in those traumas, reliving that trauma event, waking up in a nightmare, or just filtering everything in the now by that past experience you had. Like I'm veteran. Well, I don't want to be experiencing everything around me through that lens, because then I'm on guard. I'm like, whoa, what's that movement over there? Do I need to be afraid? Where's my protection? Lock my doors, 16 locks, So I have to come out of that. And how do you come out of being stuck in the past, reliving a traumatic image? One way they do it, I don't like this way, is you relive it over and over again and you desensitize. So if you've had, you've seen somebody bleed out in a drive-by or something, you can go, well, you relive that experience and that's, it's kind of staining your whole authentic self, So how do you break out of that into a different kind of future? So, for example, I use a lot of sand tray work with material objects, and my wife and I do equine assisted psychotherapy, like I work with horses.
Okay.
So if you take say a veteran family member out to meet horses, and if they got some internal rage, even if you can't see it on their face, you and I, that horse will run away. Horses are fraidy cats, They're big old
Hey.
cats that run away.
Okay.
Now, they're also very loving herd animals. So if a person is sad and feeling down, you may not even see it because they're like
Mm-hmm.
holding it in. But the horse is going to know. The horse can feel the vibrations of their energy, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that you were talking about. And the horse
Mm-hmm.
will come close and nuzzle. And so when we have that kind of embodied aspect, getting people into their body is the first thing. Second thing, I take them after working with the horses a bit, and then I'll say, okay, here's a whole bunch of material objects, If you want, I'll take you into another room. I'll show you my material objects tray. But I'll say, okay, pick some objects without thinking. Don't even think about the objects. Like, okay, so you're picking up this box. Don't have a story in mind. Just you felt the energy of the box here. Wonder what's in the box.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, better keep that box closed. So you have this relationship with the energy of this box and the energy of the body,
Mm-hmm.
and you pick the box up for some kind of reason. Let's say I pick up uh, this placemat, and
Mm-hmm.
it's got a picture of like, is that a saloon or a hotel or something? Now I got
Mm-hmm.
two objects. Well, what? And I don't have the veterans or family members. I'll say, now tell me your story. I'll say, do you want it to say anything about the objects in your life?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to? So, for example, I might say, you know, this looks like something out of a Western. And I always thought of my dad as like John Wayne and my mother like Veronica Lake. And they're in this Western and they act with a lot of chivalry. And yeah, I kind of like that. I don't like today's movies as much, So I might think of that and I'll say, well, I'm not sure about the box, but really has a lot of intricate designs within designs within designs, if you see it,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And maybe that pattern of me being involved with the family and the world around me, yeah, there was some discoveries I made about myself. So I do that as a first session and then say, okay, like who helped you? Who helped you in your
Okay.
life? And put some different objects together. You know, what was very helpful? I don't have many objects to grab right now, but let's say um, somebody that gave me a helping hand along the way. You know, it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't all traumatic. There were moments where people reached out to me in Vietnam and cared about me. You know, and there were events. Some of them quite spiritual. Some of them just being with the drinking buddies and everything. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there were moments where I got a sense of myself. Um, and when I grew up, everybody in my family had never been to college or university, so they were saying, "Well, you're never gonna go to college. You don't even pay attention in high school. You keep getting kicked out of school. I mean, you're not gonna. That's not gonna. You're gonna be like a mechanic or something, or plant bushes. you know." So they start programming. Your life
Mm-hmm.
starts to be programmed. But if I can think back, the few times I did go to high school, I was doing people's algebra homework. I had a
Mm-hmm.
natural ability for that and a creative thing with electronics. And so I noticed there were some things I call little wow moments in my life. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense? Where
Mm-hmm.
I found out I could do things.
Yeah.
If I collect those little wow moments from my past when I could do something, then I can use that to say, well, those little wow moments can form a new pattern for the future, and I can have a different future than the one I'm on, than the path I'm on. So when I discovered that, like I stopped drinking, I, I was a happy guy. I was
Mm-hmm.
drinking a lot, but I didn't know it was a lot. I came home from Vietnam and I said, drink 2 6 packs a day and drink, some rum and some other things on the weekend, along with the 2 6. That was a normal life. And then finally, I ran into people and they said, that is a lot of alcohol you're drinking, and you're not kind of all there with us with that going on. And it was actually my younger brother told me. He said, "David, you're getting older. You're going to go through a divorce now. You're a prime candidate to fall down the well. Alcoholism, and quit now and avoid it. You know." So I did. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean there's these life changing transitional moments that are so quick
Mm-hmm.
that you can miss them. You can miss the opportunity. I hope that's
Yes.
some answer to your question.
No, that's perfect because everything you're saying, like I mentioned before, we've been knowing each other. So a lot of my framework, um, I didn't plan for it to happen, but we do have some similar thoughts on, and that's why I use the word transition and not change because I feel that the words we use influence us.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to understand, why do we use certain words? And so when I say navigating transition, I want to create that mindset, that image, that when we say transition, it's an ongoing process.
Mm-hmm.
You're moving through. It's not just a start and an end, but you're moving through and it becomes a part of who you are. And it becomes a part of your story, like you said. And so, and these transitions is not just one right after the other. You can have them all going on at the same time, and you're in different spots. And so I wanted to create this idea and this feeling of moving along. You're not stationary.
Mm-mm.
And so in my framework, I call it my greatest me. And basically, I define my greatest me is what do you need more of? What do you need less of in order to navigate this transition? And so I'm loving when I'm hearing the storytelling and that connection, because I always say when I meet people and we have the same ideas, you have that connection. It's like, oh, someone out there is seeing it the same way. And so, I know I get excited. So I'm really enjoying this conversation. So I want to ask, I mentioned earlier you have an annual conference on quantum storytelling. Okay, and then you have the certification program on true storytelling. So tell us why is one quantum storytelling and then one is true storytelling? How are they connected? How are they different? How do they work together?
Well, I'm glad you asked. So the Quantum Storytelling Conference started a decade ago, and the True Storytelling started a little bit later, like 3, 4 years. And the Quantum Storytelling is the second international conference on storytelling that we founded. And the first one ran for 25 years, and it was on the East Coast and had a lot of
Mhm,
Europeans coming back and forth. But then they started to run out of money and they couldn't fly
mhm,
over as often.
mhm,
And so we decided to end it after 25 years. But before then, we started the Quantum Storytelling Conference. And we were trying to understand how everything is so interconnected. We're uh, living quantum beings of energy. I think you like that, right? We're quantum beings
mhm,
of energy in an energy universe. What does that mean? It means that, you know, we're interconnected. Our body is interconnected with our environment. Some of that environment is an artificial environment, and maybe we're taking in a lot of pesticides and chemicals, and our food may not be as natural as we want it to be, and that has an impact on our
mhm,
on our mind and our heart, all right, and on our speech. And then suppose that we change our energy. How do we change our energy? You know, well, meditation. I met Grace Ann. I started my second wife, and we've been married
mhm.
23 years.
Okay.
And I immediately became a vegetarian when I met her, and I immediately took up meditation, because she was meditating and she was a
Uh-huh.
vegetarian, and I wanted to be
Okay.
part of her life. So those are transitional moments
Mhm,
and choices that have affected the last couple decades of my life. So the quantum storytelling is kind of a celebration of life on the
mhm,
planet, life in the universe, a spiritual life. So I spend a lot of time meditating every day. Like every day, I go in the desert and I do a little running with my two puppies. They're
mm,
older; they're
okay.
2, 3 years old, but I call them puppies.
Mhm,
And they are just so happy to be up in the morning. They're happy to get their food. They're happy to go out. It could be raining, it could be snow. We don't get that much snow, but I mean, once
mm,
every couple of years. And they want to go out. They want to go out and
mhm,
play. Well, that's going to change my whole energy. It's going to change
mhm.
my quantum field. of energy to just be in nature and meditate on. I meditate on the chakras,
Oh, mm-hmm.
the seven energies. I
Oh,
meditate on the
yeah.
directions, north, south, east, west, up,
Mm-hmm.
down, and in, the seven directions. So for me, living storytelling is a very indigenous, grounded way of being in the world. It's I think we grow up, many of us, detached and separated from nature and community. And then it's like, how do we find it if we'd never had it? And how do
Mm-hmm.
we return to it if we had some glimpses of it, little wow moments of it? How
Mm-hmm.
do we? So the Quantum
Mm-hmm.
Storytelling Conference, we have a lot of indigenous people and scholars from down under, Australia,
Mm-hmm.
New Zealand, and from Denmark, etc., but also across the United States and Canada. And then we look at the
Okay.
tough issues. We look at, um, you know, it's not all fun and games. We talk about being colonized and
Mm-hmm.
genocide, and there's people in the mountains up here that were buried that history, not even in the history books.
Mm-hmm.
And so we care about life and the interconnectedness. And so if, even though you and I are separated, what is it, halfway around the world, you and I right now,
Yes. Yeah.
we're still energetically right
Mm-hmm.
there. Like I can feel the energy field that you emanate. You know what I mean? So that's
Mm-hmm.
a little bit about quantum storytelling. And the true storytelling, we certify people to deal with storytelling ethics, to deal with organizational change and development,
Mm-hmm.
certified to do training in diversity, equity, inclusion, and
Mm-hmm. Okay.
so we do training. Uh, we think it's very exciting to do.
Mm-hmm.
We've been on Zoom the last year doing our training.
Oh, okay.
All been on Zoom because of the COVID, and now we're
Yes.
looking forward to some of our graduate trainers.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be getting them together in December for our quantum storytelling, and they'll be
Okay.
presenting what they're doing in true storytelling as part of their certification.
Okay.
I hope that gives you some idea of my world. It's exciting, you know?
Yes. Yes, it does. And it's very interesting. Especially when you were talking about the chakras, because I know that's the new area that um I'm reading up on, because a few years ago I got into the use of essential oils. And so I use those dealing with a lot of emotions. And I like to study the emotions and what essential oils can get you grounded so you can start understanding, why am I having this emotion? Where did it start from? Why am I having it now? How do I get past it? Because I believe that in order to move forward, you have to understand your past, and you have to understand it, you have to know it, and you have to accept it. Like you mentioned earlier, learning your past. Sometimes you may find out things you don't like, but that is a past, and it is part of your overall story. So how do you, I don't want to say embrace, but how do you understand that, yes, my past, I have some things in my past that doesn't set well with me, but it's part of my past, and how do I live with that? And so with me and essential oils and emotions, I take the same thought process. Is, why are you having these emotions? It's
Mm-hmm.
one thing to say, yes, I'm sad, yes, I'm angry, but do you know why? And do you know what triggered it? And then how do you get past it? Because I always say that, yes, you have these emotions and you figure it out, but it doesn't mean they're going to go away. You will always have those triggers.
Hmm.
They don't go away. What changes is, how do you deal with these triggers?
Sure.
How do you understand what happened today that I was triggered?
Hmm.
And so it seems like you talk about that as well, is understanding that rationale, that reasoning. So from what you said, I'm hearing that you mentioned that as well. So I think I asked before, but I will ask again. If someone has something in their past that they don't like or that is not good, how do you coach them or teach them how to accept that it's part of their past, but they don't have to be like that?
Sure. Sure. That's a beautiful question. Some examples. So, for example, I was on welfare as a child, as a teenager. And we had a really rich life in Europe, and all of a sudden, my parents divorced, and
Mm,
my mother is stranded in Washington State with two boys and a girl. I'm the oldest son,
mm,
and the other two are in diapers.
mhm,
And she's a woman that didn't learn to drive and depended on her husband, and that was a time when that
mhm,
was what was done. And
mhm,
now I'm getting welfare cheese, and I'm,
mhm,
although I spoke French and English pretty fluently, in a high school, and everybody's saying, "Oh, that's a welfare guy," That's
mhm,
and the teachers. I just feel like everybody's looking down, and I'm shrinking and everything. But out of that experience, I now can identify with people who've had some kind of experience about poverty and some
mhm,
kind of experience about prejudice. And
mhm,
I remember the welfare lady at the time would come into the house and go to my bedroom, open my chest of drawers, move around my t-shirts and underwear and say, "Oh, there's a transistor radio. You didn't declare that. Your mother didn't declare that. We're going to deduct that from your check, your next welfare check." And I was so angry. I was so mad. But now I kind of, okay, if I meet somebody, um, I've done some work with homeless veterans, so I said, well,
mhm,
no, I can relate. I have a way to relate to them.
mhm,
My
mhm,
experience may not be as traumatic, may not be as big or whatever, but I can relate. I can relate. You know what I'm saying? So
mhm,
that's how I turn it around, is because I'm shining a different light on this story, a different spotlight on it.
mhm,
And what we call restoring, I'm restoring,
mhm,
and I'm saying, well, without that experience, the Vietnam, the drinking, okay, a few times in jail. Okay, more than a few
mhm,
times in jail as a mad teenager.
mhm,
So, yeah, now I'm gonna identify with all those people too. You know,
mhm,
you know what I'm saying? And if I hadn't
mhm,
had that experience, I just go, "Oh, those jail people are over there. I'm over here. I'm I'm not gonna relate to them." You know what I'm saying? But now
mhm.
I have a chance to relate. And triggers, oh my gosh, triggers. 73-year-old man has a lot of triggers. And I practice when I meditate in the morning. Sometimes I'll think, okay, I had a trigger yesterday. What was that about? Why did I feel so annoyed when that person, you know, I, they were talking about somebody else that mentored them, but I mentored them too. They didn't mention me. What was that? Why am I so concerned? What is that? Why was I angry? Was I jealous? Do I still love this person? I still want them in my life. So that the thing I'm trying to do is rehearse getting back to center authentic self quicker. When
Mm,
when the
okay.
button is pushed and I'm going like,
Mhm,
ah. then
Good.
yeah, I feel the motion. I'm gonna roll with it, but get back to center quicker. You know, I don't know if that's what
Okay.
you teach or not, but that's what I'm trying to do.
Um, I teach something like that of how to get grounded.
Yeah,
So you're back to knowing who you are, why you are at this moment, and what was causing this moment. Yes, I talk about being grounded. I call it grounded. So
yeah.
yeah, so I talk a little bit about the same thing. So our time is almost up. So I just want to thank you, David Boje, for coming on and sharing about quantum
You're welcome.
storytelling, true storytelling, and seeing how that is connected
Let's see.
um, on my framework. So thank you for doing
Go over
that.
here and
So
see.
where can people find you? Do you have a website if they want to interact with you and connect with you?
Sure. DavidBoje.com will get you just about anywhere you want to go. It'll have
Okay.
a link to the annual conference, and you can go to truestorytelling.org, and there's a book, True Storytelling, and the certification programs, and all the fun things. But I think you and I share a lot of things in common because over the decade we talked to each other. We shared our stories together. So
Yes, and with the framework, with how it started was not how it ended. You know, it was a totally different beginning and then how it ended, and then going back and when you were mentoring me, and I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that stuff was still in me and it was coming out. So I was like, okay, well, I guess this is the world trying to tell me this is where I need to be. So again, thank you, David Boje, for coming on and sharing with us regarding quantum storytelling and true storytelling. Your information, once I post it, I will put it in the comments so people will see it and can connect with you. So again, life changers, thank you for joining me on this transition puzzle. I hope you enjoyed our topic, navigating authentic storytelling. I hope you enjoyed our guest, Dr. David Boje. Thank you for joining me. And until next time, just know I am my greatest me, becoming, being, sustaining. Thank you again, and I will see you next time on the Transition Puzzle. Sai Jen. Bye.